Hello, hello, hello. Looking for signs of life. Hello, hello, hello. If you are here and you're watching, feel free to let me know. Oh, we have a first. Hello, Farouk. Welcome, welcome. If anybody else is here, feel free to leave a message in the chat. Just say hi, where you're tuning in from. Yeah, I'm waiting for like the views counter to change. It still says 0, which is interesting because there's obviously people here. There's obviously people here watching. I know we have at least one viewer, Farouk, who said hi. If anybody else is here, hello, hello. Khalifa, welcome. We'll give another, let's say, minute or two to allow some people to join in. Let's see. If you're just joining in, feel free to say hi in the chat. Send some kind of thumbs up or something. Okay, oh, awesome. I see we have 7 concurrent viewers. Hello, Harry. Welcome. Welcome from Montreal. So welcome. Welcome to What the Wix live stream. Hello, Deep Purple. For those of you who don't know what the Wix is, it's a new combination of a blog post, newsletter, and live stream that happens once a month here in the Wix Wiz community. The blog post and newsletter are full of interesting updates to the Wix ecosystem, from no code to slightly code to more code involved updates. Obviously, it's not everything that's changed inside the entire Wix ecosystem, but just a few things that I personally found interesting and I think would be of value to our community. So you could either check it up here on the Wix Wiz website and the blog, or you can actually also sign up for the newsletter and just get it straight into your email in kind of a summarized format. So that's a little bit about what the Wix, and accompanying that is this live stream. I will say one thing that I would like to incorporate some community member highlights into the next edition. So next month's What the Wix. So if you are building a project on Wix and you have been inspired by one or more of the videos on the Wix Wiz channel, I'd love to hear from you. You can write to newsletter@thewixwiz.com and tell me about your project, which videos you used for it, and how it's incorporated into your project. And I'd love to feature you in the next What the Wix. So again, if we get multiple entries, I'll end up having to pick one, but worst case, maybe we can put the other entries in upcoming months, etc. But I'd love to hear about your project and to highlight them here in our blog post, newsletter, and live stream. So that's a bit about what the Wix is. You can check it out here. Generally, if this is your first live stream, so the way that our live stream works is that usually we would do it as just a Q&A, so you can leave questions that you have inside of the chat and I will go ahead and answer them. For this time, I wanted to try something a little different, which is to, hello Stefan, welcome, which is to have a topic for the live stream. And the live stream's topic this week, this month is the Ecom Platform on Wix. And specifically, we are going to, you definitely count the signs of life, Stefan. Hi, David. And specifically, we are going to watch this webinar together, at least parts of this webinar, as a starting point for our conversation about e-commerce on Wix. It's something that's changed a lot over the past year plus, and the capabilities have really expanded, especially for developers. So I think it's a really interesting topic. So as we are having this conversation, hello, Matthias, welcome from Argentina. So as we are having this conversation, feel free to leave questions or just comments inside of the messages and inside the chat. And if it's about e-commerce, I will bring it up as we are having this conversation about e-commerce. And if it's a question that's not related to e-commerce, then we'll leave it for the end, and then I'll address all the other questions, or as many as we have time for. The way that the chat works is that it's members first. So anybody who's a subscriber to the channel can send messages and ask questions, but I will address the member questions first. So if a member asks a question, then I'll give it priority. Otherwise, it's first come, first serve. And I try to answer as many questions as I can for individual people, as opposed to a lot of questions for one person. So if one person asks 3 questions, then I will answer the first one, and then I'll go to another question and then circle back. So that is about what the Wix and what we're going to be doing today. As always, if I don't answer your question now, or if you have questions about videos on the channel, you can always comment on the videos. You can also always go to the Wix Wiz forum. I recently launched a new loyalty program, so if you post on the forum, it should give you loyalty points, which you can then use to get discounts on different services that we offer at the Wix Wiz. But you can also get answers to your questions, which is probably even more valuable to you. So that is the forum. If you have any questions that I don't manage to answer today, or questions on specific videos on the channel, etc. Farouk mentioned he's building an inventory application, including a sale using POS. Sounds cool. I'd love to hear more about it. Yeah. When you say application, maybe you mean Wix blocks or something like that. I don't know. Or you're just building it as a website. Love to hear more. Feel free to comment or shoot me an email. But let's hop in and start watching this webinar together. Let me go ahead and make this big. So I'm going to kind of be stopping and making comments throughout. You can also feel free to shoot questions as you have them. First, I want to make sure that you hear what's in the video. So I'm going to play it and let me know if you managed to hear.
Let's go over a bit over the e-commerce platform structure. So how do we do that? When we build the platform, first, we decided to define the e-commerce common ground. We figured that a lot of the different e-commerce's business has the same components.
Great. Thank you, Reed.
And need the same things. That allows us to remove duplications in Wix, to increase the expertise and know-hows, and to separate the concern and responsibilities.
So I'm going to give like a little bit of my 2 cents here. So generally, what they're addressing here is the e-commerce platform, which is a new concept within Wix, where essentially they're separating out what he's calling here. Again, this is all kind of my interpretation. I'm not speaking for Wix, but based on my experience. Kind of what they're doing here is they're separating out anything that's common between different e-commerce needs into a separate quote-unquote platform, or from our perspective, a different set of APIs. And that's really what I want to do here in this conversation as well, is drill down and show you like which specific APIs we're talking about. But before that, just to give like a little more of a practical example. So Wix has many business solutions. So they have Wix stores, Wix bookings, pricing plans, etc. So lots of things that technically can fall under e-commerce. I mean, Wix stores is probably the most classic e-commerce example, but technically bookings has a lot of things in common with Wix stores in terms of e-commerce. Like You might want to add to a cart. You definitely want to go to checkout, etc. So what Wix has been trying to do is to really abstract away the e-commerce functionality. So we can think of it pretty much as catalog, cart, and checkout. And he's going to have like a whole long diagram in a moment that you'll see what's being talked about. But and so separate out that from the individual apps, from Wix stores and Wix bookings, etc. So that essentially what ends up happening is that Wix stores ends up acting more as a out-of-the-box catalog where it utilizes the Wix ecom under the hood, but essentially the real added benefit of using Wix stores is that it has like an out-of-the-box catalog versus using your own catalog. So let me just take a step out and head over to the APIs just to show you, because I think when you look at the APIs, it becomes even more clear. So these are all the new Wix Ecom APIs. So here we have Wix Ecom backend, frontend, and V2, and we'll hop in a little more in detail later on as the webinar continues. But you'll see that these are separate essentially to what we have down here, which is like Wix Stores backend, Wix Stores frontend, Wix Stores. And same, there's APIs for Wix bookings, etc. So it used to be that everything was Wix Stores in terms of, let's say, cart and checkout and stuff like that. So in Wix Stores front end, let's say you would have cart and you would have like an add to cart API. It might have even been deprecated by now. And so everything essentially you would do from here, from inside Wix stores. But now everything is abstracted away into Wix Ecom right over here. So Wix Ecom backend, let's say we have current cart and we have an add to cart API here. And this API is theoretically agnostic. So it works with Wix stores, but as we'll see, it can and potentially will work with other business solutions as well, and with custom catalogs as well. So that's kind of the philosophy here. And the Wix Stores APIs will stay, but mostly for interacting with the product catalog. So you'll see here things like, let's say, create product or get product variants, stuff like that. Those are still part of Wix Stores because those are unique to the Wix Stores catalog. Whereas things like cart and checkout, etc., those are things that are abstracted away to ecom. So that's kind of the common ground here that he's talking about, to my understanding. Again, if anybody has questions or comments, please feel free to leave them in the chat.
After we've modeled the common ground, we will create an out-of-the-box components and solution to all ecom businesses. Basically, it means that we'll provide tools for developers that can be reused to support all of those business aspects and verticals, and let others focus on what they do best, matching the product to the business segment. And of course, the last one is to partner with others. And this is where we see.
So here, when he says out of the box, I'm not sure if he's referring to like Wix stores, Wix bookings, etc., or if he's referring to the tools, the APIs themselves in terms of out of the box. It's a little unclear, but maybe it'll become more clear later on.
The importance of a vibrant community and make sure that everyone succeeds. And this is what we came up with. This is what we think is the e-commerce common ground. You see all of the components that build this platform. Let's start and go one by one. Every e-commerce business has a catalog.
So just to clarify, like this essentially is what can be seen in the new ecom APIs. Catalog, we have the option for, let's say, custom catalog. He'll probably talk about that soon. Inventory, you'll probably have to manage by yourself. I don't think there are specific APIs for managing inventory, but I might be wrong. We could look at that soon. Cart and checkout are a very big part of it. Payments in terms of connecting a custom payment provider, orders, fulfillments, etc. So essentially, where the old business solution fit in terms of, let's say, Wix stores, and thank you for all the hearts, whoever's sending them. In terms of Wix stores and Wix bookings and all that stuff, it pretty much sits over here. So catalog and inventory. Okay, so Wix stores is like a catalog. It allows you to add in products through your dashboard. It allows you to manage inventory. But once we get to the cart, it's pretty much, it's not really something that's native to Wix stores. It's something that could be shared. And we could take another catalog, like another app that we build by ourselves, or another Wix business solution, and kind of plug it into the system along with all the rest. So that's kind of what is going
Sell
on
something, all right? So the things I sell can refer to physical products, but not only. It can be services, gift cards, pricing plans, digital items, rentals, whatever. If you're selling it, it's part of your business catalog. Second is the inventory. The inventory is what manages the availability of that item or the things that I sell. Can I sell this item? Where should I sell it from? All of that is part of the inventory aspects of the e-commerce business. Cart, pretty much familiar with that, I guess, is the basket for the buyer. Checkout, where the buyer actually makes the purchase with everything related to that. And that splits, and how we see this split is by the calculation of the total amount to be paid, right? How much it costs, how much should be paid. And when we calculate that, we take everything into consideration. We take the items, the taxes, the shipping, the discounts and fees that should be applied for that specific order.
So those of you who are either familiar with the SPIs, service plugins, and or have watched the channel, I mean, you could already, like by looking at this diagram, it's already like jumping to mind the different things that, the different APIs, SPIs that Wix has been adding that really just address each one of these different things in terms of like shipping, discount, fees. I mean, tax, I guess, would fall under fees. I don't know if there's a specific service plugin for that. And I'm not showing it to you now because I think he's going to talk about that more in depth. But we'll definitely take a peek at the documentation and see the service plugins. But really, like every single thing here is represented by new APIs inside of the Wix Ecom APIs.
Payments, which mean how can I get paid? As a business, I can have multiple ways to get paid.
Sorry, I'll put an asterisk on that because gift cards I know is something that, I mean, I've had issues with it in the past because I don't think gift cards were originally included in the ecom APIs. I do know that they are working on something. As far as I know, it's not launched. If you have seen something with regard to gift cards, some gift card functionality I think is integrated. Like maybe you can see if there's a gift card applied, but I don't know if you can apply a gift card manually via the APIs. So some of the stuff here that they're talking about, also with regard to, let's say, the Wix pricing plans, are some of the things here might be future plans. Like this, they're not necessarily describing an existing infrastructure, but a combination of an existing infrastructure and a dream infrastructure that they're working on.
It can be credit card, gift cards, membership payments, and more. Lastly, the order, right? The order entity, which reflects the contract between the buyer and the seller and its huge life cycle. Order created when the purchase flow ends, but it never completed unless the merchant decided to, right?
Sorry, just another, I hope I'm not stopping too often, but just an interesting way that you can see this abstraction manifesting in Wix, even if you're not a developer, is that now if you go to your orders in your Wix dashboard, if I'm not mistaken, again, I'm working on memory here, but it used to be that orders was pretty much the orders from Wix stores. But now the orders tab in your dashboard includes orders from Wix stores, but also other things like Wix bookings and I think pricing plans as well. So that is like this is not only something that they've been doing for developers, but a restructuring of their entire infrastructure and how they think of e-commerce and the relationship between their different business solutions.
You can edit an order, you can cancel it, you can refund it. There's a huge lifecycle linked to an order. And lastly, fulfillment. And fulfillment actually means the process of getting the items to the buyer. If it's physical items, that means I will use some delivery method in order to ship it around. But if it's a digital item, that means that I need to send an email for you with download link, right? And if it's a booking, that means something totally different. But it all comes under the umbrella of fulfillment, and this is how we see it. So what do we offer in e-commerce platform? Basically, we have a set of APIs and development tools, the Wix SDK and CLI.
So another thing this brings to mind that we haven't talked about yet, and they really, I mean, maybe this is mentioning it in a way, is that another advantage of this abstraction that they're making and the separation of e-commerce from the business solutions is that it makes it much easier to leverage the system if you're using Wix as a backend. So one of the recent what products, I don't know exactly what to call it, but one recent thing that Wix released over the past year or so was the headless. Basically, Wix is trying to position itself to be used as a backend or a headless CMS or a headless business solutions for applications that are built outside of Wix. So when you're building with the Wix editor, you're using Wix as a front end and as a back end. But you could also easily now build your app, let's say, in React or your website in React, and just use Wix as a backend, leveraging the CMS, but also business solutions like Ecom. And it's now much more versatile and easy to use because of this abstraction. And I think that that's also something that they had in mind. That's with regard here to like SDK, CLI. These are things for like building applications. These are things that you wouldn't really come across if you're building natively with inside the Wix editor.
That provide e-commerce functionalities and essentials. That means the create order API, create checkout, charges, and more. We also have a set of UI components which relevant to the e-commerce domain. It can be collect payment button from the dashboard. It can be a cart page, checkout page, and a lot more of those components.
So in terms of components, I mean, cart page, checkout page, those all already existed. I think what they're maybe referring to here is like the customization of those pages, which they're trying to make easier, and leveraging those pages essentially for custom catalogs and stuff like that. So you can use Wix Checkout with your own custom catalog as opposed to having to build your own checkout experience or use a third party, etc. Oh, I realized that's an easy way to customize and extend both. That's the next thing he's going to talk about. I really didn't see that.
And an easy way to customize and extend both of those. And I want to explain a few things about extension.
So before we go into this section, I just see that we have a question here in the comments, in the chat. So Reed asked, have you ever done that Wix Headless? So I have played around with Wix Headless. I haven't built a full application that utilizes Wix Headless. There is one tutorial on the channel that uses, I think I used like the auth system of Wix Headless in order to, like I did a small demo with that. I'm really very much engulfed kind of within the Wix ecosystem at the moment. So I don't have many side projects that I'm working on that I would have used Wix Headless for, but I am curious about it. And also, like with most Wix technologies, I do like to give them kind of a breathing period after they come out to let them kind of fortify and establish themselves before hopping in. I think that grace period has passed. It's been about a year, if I'm not mistaken. So it's definitely something that I would want to explore more, but it's something that is not as much value to, let's say, my current, I mean, also my current personal interest, but my audience and clients, because most of them are within Wix and they're not looking to utilize headless essentially. So I think it's important knowledge in terms of the Wix ecosystem, but it's not something that I have a lot of hands-on experience with.
Tools in Wix. So basically in Wix, we're separated between two different types of extensions. We have something we call service plugins, which we used to call an SPI, for those of you who are familiar with that. What's a service plugin? Basically, in the easiest way to understand, is an API that Wix defines, which you can choose to implement. And when you decided to implement this API, you're becoming a service provider. In some point of our flows, in our backend flows, when we decide, we will call this service provider and ask you for something, to do an action or give us some data, so we can continue and take it into our flows. And based on your response, we'll know how to act. So that's a service plugin.
Okay, let's get a little hands-on here because I feel like it's hard to understand these things without seeing the actual documentation. So let me pop out here for a second and let me find here Wix Service Plugins. So again, used to be called SPIs. So if you're looking for any videos about this on the channel, it might have the keyword SPI instead of Service Plugin. But essentially what it does is it allows you, as you described, it allows you to create logic that can be inserted into very specific parts of the Wix app flows or the Wix e-commerce flow. So let's see if we could find the list here. There used to be a list. Okay, here. So this is a list of all the service plugins. So you see a lot of them. So a lot of them are e-commerce. So you have additional fees, which is one of the older ones. Catalog, which is on the newer side. I have tutorials for both of those. Discount triggers, don't have a tutorial, but I have used it. By the way, if you're using that, then it's a funny story. So I helped a client implement this, and it just kind of like it wasn't working. And then reached out to Wix. It turns out that there was something on their dashboard that didn't exist that needed to exist inside of the discounts, the automatic discounts part of the dashboard. There was like a choice in a drop down that just wasn't there. So they obviously, after I contacted them, they put it in. So if you're using discount triggers and it's not working for you, that might be why. Like a lot of, like, that's the thing, like a lot of these things are on the newer side. Like there have been some that have been around for a while, like additional fees, but even if it doesn't say beta, it could be it's still rather new. And if it's not working for you, like this is an area of the documentation where I would trust yourself more than I would trust the documentation. And don't hesitate to reach out to Wix. Also because they're happy to engage with people who are using these technologies, because I'm assuming it's not a humongous audience and they're still learning and improving it. So they're happy to help people that reach out. Yeah, so if you're getting stuck here, then don't hesitate, I think, personally. Yeah, payment settings, haven't used that one. Shipping rates, validations, I have a tutorial on validations. But basically, the way that these work are, and there are some non-e-commerce ones as well. Oh, there is a tax one, tax calculation. But basically the way that this works is that it allows you to insert a custom logic into another processee that Wix has that would otherwise be a closed box. So for example, let me try and find a good example here. Let's say for validations, okay? So the Wix cart and Wix checkout page are not really very customizable. They're widgets. You can't like drag and drop and move elements and add things. We'll talk about the UI plugins in a moment, but if we wanted to, for example, verify that something okay, sorry, I think the the stream went for a second. So okay, so let's say for example, if I wanted to okay, hopefully let's see, my computer already overheating. I bought this new kind of fan stand that I put under my laptop to try and cool it down. Okay, so back to validations. So basically, if I wanted to make sure that a certain item is in cart or anything with regard to the items in my cart or some kind of validation as I'm doing the cart and checkout, I would have no way to interact with those pages and widgets using just plain Velo code. There's no way to do that. So what Wix does is it gives you kind of like a backdoor where you can essentially read what's in the cart, what's in the checkout, implement your own certain logic, and then return that to Wix and display something in the UI as they define it. So it's kind of like a specific way that you can insert yourself into the ecom logic in this case. It's very useful. I think these are super, super, super useful. I've seen a lot of practical use cases for a bunch of these. Yeah, so that's that. Let me know if you have any questions about service plugins, SPIs. I know it could be a little more complex for people who are not from a development background or have mostly played around with Velo APIs. Let me take a look just for a second at the chat because I see here, Reed, thanks, it's been great as a future video. Was wondering how much of Wix functionality has been made available as headless. So quite a bit, quite a bit. So most of the business solutions, CMS, again, I haven't used it myself, but I have gone through the documentation. So quite a lot of it is available. It's quite robust. Reed also mentioned that he's used the shipping rates SPI. Very useful for specific, yeah. I don't think I've used the shipping rates one myself. Maybe it's a future tutorial, but yeah, I mean, generally the SPIs are very useful. And hi, Beauty by Julia. Welcome welcome to the live stream. Okay, so that was service plugins, and the next thing we're going to talk about here, I think, is the UI extensions. Let's see what he has to say about it, and then we'll hop into the documentation to explore a bit.
The other type of extensions are UI extensions, where you can bring your own plugins to be shown within our product seamlessly. It can happen on the site side, what is rendered to the buyer, the site plugins, but we are now supporting a variety of dashboard plugins where you can interact with our predefined or pre-built products and integrate with it seamlessly. This is a high-level map of our extensions.
Okay, so let me just show you the docs quickly for the plugins, just so you know what that is. So these are the service plugins, but not to be confused with the UI plugins. Let's see if I can find that. Let's say Wix, let's say product page plugin. There's an interesting tutorial here if you're looking for one. Let's see, site plugin for Wix Store's product page. Yeah, so this is an example of a site plugin, but basically what it lets you do, let's see if there's a diagram here. Let me find the docs here, site plugin. So service plugin, site plugin, that's the terminology. Basically, what it allows you to do, so within these different apps, there are certain pages or widgets that are a closed box essentially. You can't edit the UI without building something completely custom, which you don't always want to do. Or sometimes you can't. Let's say for checkout page, you really can't. Product page, you technically could build your own custom product page, but you might not want to do that if you just want to kind of insert something in it. And basically what it allows you to do is, if this, let's say, is the widget or the product page or the checkout page or whatever page it is, then there are specific slots where you can insert your own application. And these applications can be built using Wix blocks, Wix CLI, so essentially anything that you would use to build an app for Wix, like the same as an app that you'd publish to the Wix marketplace. And then people can add these. I mean, you could build it just for yourself, or you could build it and publish it, and essentially insert it into these individual pages. I will give a note here that depending on which one you're using, I haven't used them all. I've played around with the product page one and the checkout page one, but essentially a lot of them are kind of read only. So basically, the app that you build for the slot will, let's say, know which product it is on the product in terms of the product page, but you won't be able to, for example, prevent somebody from adding something to cart until something happens in your app, if you understand what I mean. So let's say an example of an app that I built for product page is to build like a coupon, a clippable coupon, like Amazon has, where you can click a checkbox and then it applies a coupon to the product page. So that you can do because all I need to do is know which product it is, and it's not conditional. But I wouldn't be able to, for example, add a certain input, let's say a date picker, to the product page and prevent somebody from adding to cart before they picked a date. Like that wouldn't be possible because it's only one directional. I don't know if again, it might not be that way for all of them. For the checkout page, there is some bi-directional communication there, but just have in mind that even though these slots do exist, they are at least currently still somewhat limited. So that's in terms of and it also requires you to have some knowledge of building applications for Wix, because it can't be done with Velo code. It has to be built outside of, like, in blocks or something like that. Not that blocks is overly complicated in my opinion, but yeah, just something to keep in mind. So that is the site plugins in a nutshell, and then it includes also dashboard plugins. Yeah, I don't know where the docs are exactly, but that's also something that he mentioned that's quite interesting. I'd want to explore that a little bit more as well, especially for an app that I'm working on. So let me know if you have any questions about service plugins, site plugins. I see there were 2 messages that were retracted, so I won't acknowledge them. I didn't catch them before they were retracted. So let's go ahead and just continue here.
So you can see all of the places where we allow to add your widgets to it, or extend the logic using a service provider. You can see it here.
Okay, so interesting. Let's take a look at this diagram. Site dashboard extensions. So I see here catalog. One thing that I notice here is that while there are SPIs, so service plugins for cart, they're probably working on it, but I don't know of a plugin, like a site plugin, like we were just talking about, for cart, which would actually be super useful. So again, a lot of these diagrams might be like projections or plans that they have, or things that when I say plans, it doesn't mean that it's not happening. It could mean that they're actively working on it. It's just not published yet. So just take this with like a grain of salt. But yeah, here you can really see, like I said before, so all these are SPIs, the shipping, discount, fees. Checkout page, we have both SPIs and we have the plugins now. And yeah, this must be for the orders. He must be talking about dashboard site plugins. And the other things are a little more abstract, like fulfillment, payment, inventory. There's no real UI for. That's probably why there aren't any of these things yet. But this is a helpful diagram, I feel.
Let's jump on top of that. So what's the news here? Basically, after we created this platform, we started to migrate all of our Wix business solutions to use the same components and the same platform. This is the list of all of the Wix solutions that already working with e-commerce platform.
Okay, Wix stores, Wix bookings. I know that those are working. I actually haven't worked that much with Wix restaurants and reservations. I don't know, it doesn't seem to be an audience that needs my help in terms of customizing things. If you've I'm actually super curious if anybody has a site with restaurants, reservations, and they needed some kind of customization. I'm super curious to hear about it because I haven't encountered it as a use case or yeah, like nothing that's kind of sparked my interest in terms of creating a tutorial. So I'd love to learn more about that. And Wix forms and pay links, I'm also very curious to see how these link into this. I haven't really played around with that too much either. And here, I'm guessing he's going to say that Wix events and pricing plans are going to be in the future.
You have Wix bookings, Wix stores, Wix table reservations, Wix restaurants, Wix forms, and pay links. We are currently working on onboarding Wix events and Wix pricing plan. So you'll have a full solution. All of the Wix business verticals will use the same shared components.
Pricing plans, I mean, probably one of the reasons that it's the last tier that they're doing, and also why I think it took a while, slash, I don't know if they fully implemented the topic of subscriptions inside of Wix stores because there's a recurring payment. So I think that becomes a lot more complex in terms of recurring payments when you're trying to integrate with, like this whole ecom system works beautifully, like if it's just a one-time purchase. But once it gets to recurring, I think it adds a lot of complexities, and that might be what they're, I don't want to say struggling with, but that's probably why they left it for last.
Not only that, we also allow you now, and this is new, to bring your own custom business solution. So if you didn't find anything that cover all of your cases, you can create your own custom business solution and integrate with Wix e-commerce platform.
Okay, so just about the integrating a custom solution. So what I think he's talking about there is essentially the custom catalog service plugin. I mean, there's more than one way to approach this actually. So there's the custom catalog, which allows you essentially to decouple, let's say, Wix stores from the whole ecom system and build your own complete custom catalog based off CMS, based off of just pure code files, based off of a third party, using, like, you could even, I don't use Shopify API to import not import, but fetch the data from your ecom store somewhere else and have the checkout through Wix. So that's really what they're talking about here, and this will all be facilitated essentially through the e-commerce catalog. I have 2 tutorials on this topic. So yeah, so that's this. Except for just this, I'll just take a peek here at the documentation, the Velo documentation. So if we go here to Wix ecom backend and go, for example, to add to current cart. So you'll see here that in addition to line items, you also have custom line items. So these custom line items, it's rather new, so it's still a little buggy. I think we talked about it a little bit in our previous live stream. But essentially, you can also just create line items on the fly, so you don't even need a catalog. You can just literally use code to create items that would be added to cart. And yeah, I know there's some other cool stuff down the line that has to do with just making this whole thing a lot more flexible and a lot less reliant on Wix stores itself.
The bottom lines here. So what's in it for you? First of all, you can now create, customize more projects that in the past you couldn't. We have a lot of places where you can customize the experience and integrate with your logic as part of the e-commerce flow. It also gives you the power to develop only once and get out of the box support to all Wix business solutions. And you will see it in a second in our demos. You can develop one application that serves booking, store, restaurants, all of the Wix business solution in one place.
I think he's talking about developing like third-party applications. Like if you're building an app in blocks that does something, let's say for example the coupon app that I developed. So what he's saying is theoretically you could build an app like that and have it work with all of the Wix business solutions instead of just or Wix stores or Wix bookings, etc.
That lets give you time to focus on your expertise and get more revenue opportunities. That's it. That's the overview. And now I will pass the mic to Omer to show you a bit in more details about the purchase flow.
Just give me a second, everyone, to show my screen.
So unfortunately, this guy is a little hard to hear. He's speaking very low. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of flip through here and see if I see anything here that looks especially interesting to comment on visually. Because I think we talked about a lot of the stuff. I'm just trying to see here. Yeah, so these are interesting. Checkout object. Yeah, let's see. Catalog. And you can create a custom catalog and fully integrate. This is what we were just talking about in terms of the custom catalog. So essentially, they've done something that's like a bit humble even. Essentially, like they're treating Wix stores or Wix bookings just as another catalog, like equivalent to a catalog that you bring in from yourself. Like let's take a look at it in the documentation actually, because I think this really helps like understand the philosophy behind it. So here in the line items, when you're adding something to cart, so you have here something that's called a catalog reference. So instead of like the old terminology, which was, let's say, like product ID, I think you would add to cart with or something like that, which is like a little presumptuous that you're using Wix stores, which made sense because the API was part of Wix stores. But here it's catalog reference. So we're not even assuming that you're using Wix stores, but you could really be using any app as your catalog. So we have the app ID. So here they offer you to use the app ID of, let's say, Wix stores or the app ID of Wix bookings, Wix restaurants. But this app ID could also be an app ID of your own custom catalog app, okay, that you developed. So when you build a custom catalog, you get like a catalog ID that's for your app. And you can reference that, and then you have a catalog item ID, which, let's say for Wix stores, that would be the product ID. For Wix bookings, I would have to double check what that is exactly. Maybe the service ID or something along those lines. And yeah, so but if it's your custom catalog, then it's whatever you define as the ID for your product. So or whatever you're adding in from the catalog. So it's really just a lot more flexible. And it's really, instead of having like Wix stores as this overarching thing and putting it on a pedestal, it's kind of like taking it down and it's saying, okay, these are all equal. These are all side by side. Wix stores is just as good as your own catalog. So I think it's very interesting, and it's in the end of the day, it's a good move. It brings a lot of flexibility to developers and people who want to build their own stuff. So that is kind of what they're showing here. Let's see what else we have here. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not like playing the audio. It's just you wouldn't be able to hear anything anyways, I think. Yeah, so I think these are just more diagrams of the stuff that we talked about already. Yeah, so like this is like a visualization of what happens. Like, so the cart, it gets the items. Here it's getting it from a custom catalog. Or it's running through the catalog SPI, which could be a custom catalog, but also the store catalog, bookings catalog, etc. Yeah, this is a good time to ask questions if you have any, because it looks like we're going to probably wrap up pretty soon in terms of the ecom. I'm trying to see if there's anything else interesting here that would be like super interesting as developers. We did go through a lot. This is what the slots look like, for example, on the checkout page. The slots if you're building site plugins. So these are the places that people can insert them on the checkout page. And I think this is one of the biggest ads in terms of the ecom revolution. Just like, because the checkout page in Wix was the least Wix page ever. Like it's a page that literally does not exist in the editor. So you can't even add Velo code to it because you cannot open it outside of your actual site experience. And this really opens up the door to adding any kind of customization that was like the cart page. You could add something under the cart widget. Like you had access to that page in the editor. You could add Velo code, but here, like the checkout page, you literally could do nothing with. And now you can, some at least. So that's one big add here. Let's see. This is an example. Yeah, so this is like an example of a block they're showing here. This is the block editor, and I know it looks a lot like, if you've never seen the block editor before, it probably looks to you a lot like Wix Studio. If you've never seen Wix Studio before, it looks somewhat like Classic. But this is kind of the block editing experience. So they built some kind of block here, and you can see it appearing in the checkout page where they installed it. Okay, right over here. So I guess it's like like an upsell essentially of insurance. Yeah. Let's see. I see we have a question. We have a question from Reed. Can you explain the difference between current cart and cart? Can I use cart to mimic the save for later functionality of Amazon? That is an excellent question because it's something that I've struggled with in the past. And even when I tried to ask Wix, it didn't seem like they even knew so much themselves. Like it could be it just wasn't the right person. But yeah, so I don't think I understand what you're trying to ask. Like the fact that there's cart and current cart implies that you could have multiple carts. Okay, that I understand the implication. The thing is that I think that if you're inside of the Wix editor, you really only have the current cart. Like the current cart is the cart that is kind of displaying in the cart icon, that if you go to the cart page, that's the cart you're going to see. Whereas, let's say if you have your current cart and you use the cart ID with the regular cart APIs, it does work. But if you just create a cart, I don't know how you would go from having that cart and turning it into the current cart that the user actually sees in the Wix editor UI. So I don't see here. Yeah, like maybe you could create a checkout from it and then go to that checkout. So like create checkout and then maybe get the checkout URL. Let's take a look. Oh no, you get a checkout ID. So maybe create checkout. Let's see, create checkout. Create checkout does it take a cart ID? What does it take? Options, channel type, line items. Doesn't even seem like create checkout. Yeah, like technically maybe you can create a checkout from a cart and then go to that checkout page, but I don't see how you'd see that cart inside of the cart UI in Wix. I'm not sure how that would happen. As far as I understand, okay, so now like let's assume that when you're inside your Wix editor and you're building a Wix website, current cart is pretty much what you're going to use. So what is cart for? Let's try and speculate on that. So to my understanding, again, I'd love to hear if anybody has any more information on that. But to my understanding, cart essentially is for applications built outside of Wix. So if you're using Headless, if you're building an app for Wix or something along those lines, and you want to have some kind of multiple cart functionality, so that is what cart could do. But within the Wix editor, you're pretty much limited to current cart. Or it's just not fully there yet, and eventually you would be able to take a cart and then transform it into the current cart. But yeah, like, I mean, technically, I guess you could get a cart, get its line items, and then move those line items into the current cart. So like you could have multiple carts under cart, and then current cart, like manually update it with whichever cart you wanted. But it's not like as seamless as like just grabbing a cart and saying, okay, this one's the current cart now, or grabbing a cart and saying this one's the current cart now, as far as I know. So I hope that kind of addresses it a little bit. Yeah, but it's an exploratory area. Let's see, Matthias has a comment. Can use the Ecom frontend to go to checkout page with checkout ID. So I'm not sure if it's a question or if it's a comment. Let's see here. Front end, can use ecom front end to go to checkout page. Ecom front end, let's see. Oh, navigate to checkout page. Let's see. With a checkout ID. Okay, awesome. So I think what Matthias is trying to say here is that before we were looking at Wix Ecom backend and we were looking at, let's say, cart and then create checkout. So you can create a checkout and that would return here a checkout ID. And then Matthias is saying very correctly, and that's a big help, that you could navigate to checkout page and just pass in the checkout ID that you created from that cart. And then it should take you to a checkout page, which is displaying the items from that cart. So in terms of using multiple carts, it seems like it should work in terms of checkout and having those carts like stored somewhere in memory. But in terms of visualizing the cart on a cart page, I think that link is missing. Again, if somebody wants to add in and address that, maybe I just haven't seen it yet. But that is, whoops. Oops. Let me see here 1 second. I'll have to I'll have to blur out that part of the live stream after this once I publish the video. Okay, so you got a glimpse of my very disorganized desktop. Yeah, okay, so let's see. Where were we? Yeah, keep the questions coming, keep the comments coming. We're about an hour in now. So I'm going to try and run through a little bit more of this to see if anything else interesting comes up. And if not, I'll address any last questions that are in the comments, and then we'll wrap up the live stream. So this is kind of This is the chance to add it. Again, it could be questions that are not specific to e-commerce. It could be questions about anything in Wix. Let's see here if we have anything else interesting. Post-purchase flow. Yeah, so this here, they're probably going to talk a little bit about, I mean, these are all screenshots of the dashboard. Here it's getting like very philosophical about what the parts are of the order, and I'm not sure how practical it is for us to understand that. I mean, there are a lot of APIs with regard to orders. So in terms of, this is actually a little bit interesting, because in terms of, let's see here for a second. In terms of the APIs, so except for just migrating a lot of the logic from, let's say, Wix stores to the ecom APIs, is that the Wix stores was sometimes a little bit limited in terms of certain things that you could do. So for example, inside of Wix stores, we had this create order API, but we didn't have many other order related APIs. You could pretty much just create an order and that's it. But if we go to Wix Ecom, essentially they've just made it a little more robust. So we have all of these order APIs. So we can cancel order, update order. Okay, these are all super useful things that didn't used to exist before. So again, this is not something that necessarily could not have existed in Wix stores, I think, in terms of just logic, but they kind of took the opportunity to build a more robust ecom system in terms of developer access. So that is actually interesting to note.
On the right-hand side, you see the example of the documentation, which is readily available in the Wix docs, where you can see all the order it needs to be bound to it. And inside it, it stores the data related to all refund and payment transactions that will be associated with this order. It's pretty straightforward. It can be, as I said, can be added from external systems internally or manually. And with this API, you are also able to retrieve transactions by the order ID, add new payments and refunds, and listen and subscribe to corresponding.
So this is actually really, I haven't played around with this at all, to be honest. Yeah, order transactions, add payments. Okay, developer preview. It must be quite new. It must be quite new. I'm curious how this would even work. Add a payment. Interesting. So let's say you have an order that's partially paid and you want to mark, like, wow, this actually opens up a lot of, I'm happy that I'm doing this with you guys because I'm learning a lot, and and like I'm thinking of different, like this is potentially open the door to building like custom systems for partial payment, right? Because you can charge somebody part of the payment for a specific order and update the order transaction to include part of the payment. And you can do that all like you can do that yourself, like either through the checkout itself, or let's say if in the checkout you only charge part, then you can use Wix Pay or something like that to do the rest of the transaction. So this really opens up a lot of doors, and these are things that would not have been possible with Wix stores. Like you did not have access to the transaction information for an order in terms of, updating a transaction. Like those were totally not possible. So this really opens up a lot. Just going to take a look here at the chat. So we have Matthias adding, I think you can use cart also in editor, but if you want to store it in another way, in time, or you want to store several for the same user, maybe it's for other logic. But Matthias, my question is, so let's say we use the cart API in the editor and we create a cart with certain items in it. And then a user navigates to the Wix cart page. How do we get them to see that cart that we created using the cart API versus the current cart API? That's my question. If you know, to hear, read. The use case would be to allow a customer to fill a cart and then save the cart for later use, while they get internal approval and a purchase order, for example. I mean, current cart is stored. So like, if you add items to your current cart and you're a logged in member, and then you leave the website and you come back, your cart will still be there. So you could have one cart. You also have like different you could do wish list functionality as well. Maybe because I'm just like a very simple consumer. I've never had the need for like managing multiple carts. But I imagine that there are use cases. They can fill another cart and then go through the checkout process. In the future, they could return to the site and check out with it. Yeah, I understand. I understand the scenario that you're describing and the use case. I'm not saying it doesn't exist. I'm not sure how you'd implement it in terms of the cart UI. Like when you go to the cart page in Wix. Let's see, Matthias has another comment here. So current cart is always one link to the user, but cart can create multiple and does not replace the current cart, of course. Using cart forces to control the front end and not use store. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And I'm saying just, again, this goes into the whole mindset of what belongs to Wix stores and what doesn't. So now the cart page in Wix, where you see the line items before you go to checkout and the checkout page, in my mind, and I think also in Wix's mind and infrastructure, that is no longer Wix stores. That is part of Wix Ecom. So theoretically, even if I'm not using Wix stores, and I am using multiple carts, which is part of the Wix Ecom API, then I should be able to display those multiple carts inside of the cart page UI, which again is not Wix stores, but rather Ecom. Which at the moment I don't think is possible. And what you might be saying is that you would need to build either a custom cart page or skip the cart page and go straight to checkout. It could be it's something that's down the line, or they just haven't thought about it. I'm not sure. I guess maybe it would depend on how prevalent the use case is. Like, I understand the use case, but I don't think it's super common. Maybe I'm just not in the right industries or whatnot, but anyway, it's a very interesting discussion. I'll prod Wix again to see maybe they have some kind of answer, or if there's anybody from Wix watching that wants to drop us a line and give us an answer, you are more than welcome to do that. Okay, let's continue because I'm learning new things here. The order transactions. I think this is really, yeah, this is quite mind-blowing actually. It must be quite new because I don't recall seeing it before, but this really opens up doors. If it does what I think it does, it really opens up doors.
Now, before we move on to basic APIs,
this I'm gonna skip because yeah, I mean it might be interesting to some people. You can watch the original video. I just feel it's like a little above my head and maybe lacks a little bit of practicality that I'm looking for here. So let's just go ahead and skip through this. Oh no, I'm pressing down instead of right. Draft orders. Let's see what he has to say about this. Oops. Why don't I hear it? I think I turned off the YouTube
parts
audio
of this draft in the separate flow, the separate session. So as you see, it mostly concerns the line items, discounts, shipping addresses, or some buyer information. Everything that affects the order state and affects the monetary information of order will go through the draft orders.
I'm trying to sorry. I just realized I've been silent because I'm trying to read this and understand what these draft orders are because I'm not sure that I understand it. Specifically, this concerns sensitive payment. Draft order is the main entity. Let me take a look at the docs for a second. I'm trying to understand what the difference between that and update order would be. Orders. Order invoices, orders settings. I don't even see it here in the docs. So maybe it's, I don't think it's out yet. I don't think this is out yet. Yeah, to be ready soon. Okay, so I'm gonna glide through this because it's a little hard to understand when we don't have the docs.
For that case, we do provide, let's say we just need some monitoring.
Let me try and back up a bit.
Actual transitions and actual side effects will depend on the payment and order state at the given time, and it can happen in multiple iterations. Now, let's say we have the order created, but we want to modify something. We will explore the specific scenario later on. For now, let's say we just need some monetary or line item information.
Yeah, I'm not so sure what the difference between what he's describing and update order would be. Maybe the terminology changed. Let's see here for a second. Orders, update order. Yeah, I would want to look into that more. I'm not sure exactly what he meant by the draft orders, unless it's just another word for updating an order. Let's see. Order fulfillments.
But still they will require existing order entity because each fulfillment is bound to order. And they provide capability to track the statuses of fulfillments for any applicable line item of order. Usually that's applicable for the physical line items, right? That require the process of preparing and delivering physically to the customer.
So this is especially useful if you are using some third party for fulfillment, let's say, and you're not using a built-in Wix app for it, and you need to somehow communicate with that third-party app and know that the fulfillment happened and update the order fulfillment essentially. So that's what this would be for. I think this was possible with Wix stores, so I don't know if this is like completely novel, but it's definitely an important part of the whole ecom experience. Let's see, one second, we have some more chats here. Future live stream guest Wix ecom expert. Maybe, yeah, that could be. Maybe I should invite somebody from the Wix team to a live stream. Japanker, partial payment in COD will definitely help reduce RTO. I don't know about everybody else. I'm really bad at at acronyms, so I'd love to hear what COD is and RTO is, just for my sake and for everyone's sake. But I do appreciate the message in the chat. COD, yeah, I'm not sure. I know I could Google it, but I don't have time right now. Order dashboard extensions. Yeah, so this is actually also quite useful. So these are slots. This is what we talked about before, site plugins. So another part of site plugins would be dashboard plugins. This actually, like, I didn't realize this before, and I think this will actually help an app that I'm working on for delivery dates, where I built already the whole part which deals with the, like, having the delivery date picker display on the checkout and all that. But I didn't manage to get it to actually display within the orders itself, but this might actually solve that. So I'm going to take a look at this definitely later on. Slots for dashboard. Yeah, cool stuff, cool stuff. I think we're close to the end. Let's see. Breezing through. I mean, fulfillment was the end of that, yeah. Demo. Okay, we don't need to watch the demo. Okay, so I think that pretty much wraps this up. Yeah, I mean, definitely go check out the whole webinar if it interests you and you want to see some of the stuff that we skipped over. I tried to keep it focused so that, you know, it would fit into the time of the live stream and would really touch on like the most relevant parts of the webinar. So I'm curious to hear did you enjoy the live stream with a topic like we just did now? I mean, not necessarily always, you know, watching something together and commenting on it, but just generally having a theme for the live stream and a topic that we're talking about. How did you feel about that versus our more classic, just, you know, really anything goes QA? Yeah, so I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. And I'll leave another minute or two if anybody wants to ask any last minute questions or leave any last minute comments about ecom or anything else regarding Wix. Let me just read here. So we have read, do any of the UI SPIs work on the Wix Spaces app? Wow. That is an excellent question. I would certainly hope so, because, okay, so the Wix, I don't know about the Wix Spaces app, because there's the Wix branded app and the Wix Spaces app. Assuming that the app allows the user to check out, I would very much hope that any SPI that you implemented for your website would also work equivalently on your app. Otherwise, you'd have a very lopsided, you know, ecom store. I mean, you'd have one experience on your website and a completely different experience on your app. And in many cases, these SPIs are doing vital business technology, like they're inserting vital business logic. So, you know, if you are, you know, you want to validate a certain thing before somebody checks out, I mean, you want that validated no matter where they're checking out. So, I mean, that is a super interesting, a super interesting question that I don't know the answer to right now. I've expressed my hopes, my hopes and dreams with regard to it, but I'm not so sure. Yeah, I'm not so sure. COD is cash. Oh, so thank you, Dipankar, for elaborating. COD is cash on delivery. RTO is return to order. When the customer cancels or rejects the orders, RTO are generally high in COD orders. Now I need to read your original comment again. Partial payment in COD will definitely help. Ah, okay. So RTOs return to order when customer cancels or rejects the order. So if I understand what you're saying correctly in layman's terms, is that the less cash that you take, the less, if you allow people to pay on delivery, it will reduce the amount of people that return items or cancel orders, because essentially they had made a very small payment up front. So their inclination to cancel that order is lower than if they had made a larger payment up front, and the rest of the payment when they actually receive the item and they have it and they're happy. So that is my understanding. That's a very good point. Read, yes, this was a heavy webinar from Wix. The ability to walk through it together add a lot of value. Thanks. Okay, great. That's good to know. So yeah, I think we're going to wrap up. I don't want to just stand here and blabber for nothing, as much as I like spending time with you guys. So thank you again for coming. I'm just going to do like a few reminders of some stuff that I talked about. So first of all, What the Wix? It's not only a live stream, but it's also a monthly blog post and newsletter. So you can go ahead and check that out on the Wix Wiz website and subscribe to the newsletter. I do want to feature a community member next month, so please share your projects. If you are working on something and you've used one of the Wix Wiz tutorials to help you along with your project, I'd love to hear more about it. You can send an email to newsletter@thewixwiz.com or just fill out one of the contact forms here on the site or something along those lines. You'll find a way to get in touch with me. I'm not that hard to get in touch with. And yeah, if you have any other questions that come up about any of the videos on the channel, you can always leave a comment or go over to the Wix Wiz community forum on the Wix Wiz website and leave your questions there. It's usually useful if the question is something that would require somebody to see the actual code or screenshots of whatever's going on your site to actually understand and help. So that's really where you can go ahead and go to the forum. And also, you may find the answer to one of your questions here as well. So before you even post your question, maybe take a look at the answers on the forum. And that's all. So thank you again for coming. It was a pleasure, and I will see you guys next month.